welcome back. We are here again for the Daughters of Wisdom podcast, and my name is Cindy Baker, and this is Tammy Treat, and we are talking about mission work and being on the field, and we're coming back from part 1, where we talked a little bit about being on the field, but we talked too much and ran out of time, so now we're at part 2.
Yes, this needed to be a part 2.
Yes, this definitely needed to be a part 2. We could probably do like 3, 4, 5 because we have a lot of stories banked up and experience banked up over the years, just things that we've experienced being on the mission field. But one of the things we wanted to kind of start off with is it makes sense, first things first. One part of being on the mission field, I feel like, is you have to get your priorities in line. If your priorities aren't in line, it's going to cause a lot of issues, not just for your own spiritual life, but for your home life. And, obviously, number one, God is first, and we'll kind of touch on that in a little bit, just attending to our own spiritual growth. But next to that is making your marriage a priority, because that you and your husband are going to be like,
you are your support system.
You are your support system.
Because you don't have family.
Exactly.
And they're across the pond.
Yeah. Yes. And you become very aware of that when you take that flight and you don't have that return ticket, and there you are in this new country. And I know for Aaron and I, that was something that we really, in some ways it tests your marriage, because you face a lot of difficulties. You're adjusting to a new life together. You're sometimes adjusting in different ways, because his work was different than my work as a wife and mom. But we had to take time for our marriage, and it's like, it's no different than here in the States. Sometimes we just have to get away and have a date night where it's just us. We can have an uninterrupted conversation. We're always like, we had a conversation and it was uninterrupted. It was a win. So we had to do that, especially because we had small kids at home. Kayla was 9 months old when we moved to Vanuatu. Malia arrived about 3.5 years later. So that became important for us. We had to make the time for those coffee dates, or a dinner date, or a weekend getaway once in a while, and had to make that a priority.
Yeah. And if anyone who knows anything about mission work knows that even, in the States, ministry, it's a full-time job. It can be after hours. It can be weekends. It's nights. It's mornings. It's all the time. Well, on the mission field, sometimes it's even more so, and you never know when there's going to be something come up that you need to drop and do. Right. And so it's very easy for everything to be focused on the work. Yes. And especially because you've got congregations back in the States that are, looking for what's going on. What are you doing? Are you working? You've got eyes on you.
Are you earning your keep?
Yes.
Yes.
And so if you don't prioritize the home and the marriage, the relationship, that's your foundation. When you move overseas and it's just your family, that's your foundation. So you've got to keep that foundation strong. You've got to keep it fed emotionally, spiritually, in all the ways. And so you've got to make time.
Yes.
Now, we were fortunate when we moved to Saipan. The congregation in Saipan was a fairly established group. They had been there, I think they had been meeting for between 15 and 20 years already. So we're talking about a group of about 50. And there was another American family who had a little girl who was the same age as our little girl. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is that when we moved overseas, we had an 11-month-old little boy and a 2.5-year-old little girl. And so, there's a lot to think about when you're taking small children. And we were very fortunate that there was this other family, and their little girl was just a few months younger than Nina. And so we had built-in friends.
Yeah, that's nice.
And we would trade off babysitting so that we could have that time.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge benefit, but it has to be a priority. I know of a missionary family who the husband, wonderful, wonderful man, but he tended to be a little bit of a workaholic sometimes. And so she wanted breakfast every Saturday morning. That was going to be their time. They would meet at this certain restaurant That was breakfast. And it was wonderful. It went great. Until one of the church members discovered that they were going there every Saturday morning and started joining them.
Yeah. The duet has become
So,
a trio.
Yeah. They had to find another place to
Yes.
meet.
Yeah.
So,
Understandable.
Sometimes you
got to change it up once in a while.
Yes, you got to figure things out.
Exactly. But it takes a conscious effort to do that. Just like here in the
Absolutely.
States, we're in ministry. It's the same way. Like if we don't make an effort to do it, life is going to suck it away.
Yes.
So we have to, you have to make that marriage a priority, and
Absolutely.
it's important. And then next, following that, your kids, your home life, you have to place a lot of emphasis on that and preserving that.
Yes. One of the most beneficial pieces of advice, again, I highly recommend if you're going overseas, you need to speak to somebody who has had years of experience, because so much of my advice given to me was from Miss Mary Martin, and they spent
so much.
Yes, you don't have to talk to Mary long before you hear the wisdom. And she told me before we left to go overseas, she said, you make sure that your children and your home are your number one priority, because there will be times when things will be so busy and so chaotic, and it's so easy to let those things slip.
Yeah.
But you need to remember that is your number one priority and your number one job. And her words echoed in my mind many, many, many times through the years. And she's right. If I do all this wonderful work for the church, but lose my children, then what have I done?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's very important to keep that home and those kids and the husband priority.
Yes. I agree completely. It's you have to make that the number one thing as far behind your work, behind your commitment to God.
Yes.
You attend to your personal spiritual life, then you attend to your family life, and then comes the work. Because if you get those out of order, it's not good.
No. Very easy for things to start crumbling.
Yes, for sure. Another thing I was thinking about on the field is like that has to be important, but definitely, it's not up there with your home and family, obviously, but communication. A huge part of mission work is communicating with your supporters back home.
Definitely.
Obviously, your family, you want to communicate with them, but without a doubt, your supporters, because communication will make or break your mission work. Never assume that just because they love you that they're just going to keep supporting you indefinitely. You have a responsibility as a missionary to make sure you're doing the work. We had to say, okay, we are committed to this work and we are going to make the most of our time and do this to the very best of our ability, because we have an obligation to those back home to do that. But they also have an obligation, because God has put that money into their hands to be good stewards of it.
Yes.
And if they don't know what's going on the field, they might decide their money's better spent somewhere else. They need to invest in a different work. So that communication is huge. What's going on with the work? What's going on with the church? What are your struggles? And I think it's important to be real about those things too. Like people, it's easy to tell all the good stuff.
Oh, yes.
But it's not all good stuff. Nobody's life is all good stuff, despite what Facebook says.
Yes.
Struggles are real, and they need to know that too.
Yes.
And there's a balance. You don't want to be complaining the entire time about here's all the things that are wrong with our life here. But you don't want to gloss over some of the struggles. You want to let them know what they can pray about. But that constant communication. I don't know what you all did necessarily for all of your ways of communication. Ours kind of changed and evolved a little bit. All throughout our mission work, since we were part of a mission team, the guys did Mission Vanuatu Minutes, and they wrote articles and talked about what they were doing individually and as a mission team on the field. But then it's that covers a lot of church-related stuff, so to speak. but then there's like the other aspect is what's going on with the Baker family.
Yes.
These girls are growing, and
yep.
Our family back home wants to see them and know what they're up to. And so I started off when Kayla was little, doing like a daily journal, on just like, this is what I'm doing today. This is where I went shopping for groceries. This is what happened at the market, just stuff like that. So people could kind of get a taste of like what my life was like on the field. And I did that for about 2 years or so. And then Malia, well, probably about 3 years, about 2 years, whatever. Anyway, but give or take. But then Malia comes along, and I'm like, this is really hard to accomplish a daily journal. I'd like go back to it and be like, oh, look at that. I haven't made an entry for 2 weeks. Okay. So I was like, I need a new plan. So then I started a newsletter that just went to our family, friends, and supporters, but it was called On a Personal Note. And it was just daily life for us. What are the girls up to? What are the funny things? What funny things did Malia say? What's Kayla up to at school? And I enjoyed doing that, putting that together. And I think it was really good for our family, especially to see that, but also good for our supporters to see like, okay, what's their life really like?
Yeah.
So that was important for us. And I think people were glad to get it.
Well, and that's the number one thing. Everyone wants to know, what's it like to live there as a family? Yes. That's what they really want to know. We did a monthly newsletter, and we started out, it's a 4-page newsletter. So Joey would do, the first 2 pages were always Joey's. The 3rd page, sometimes it would be half a page for me. Sometimes it would be a full page. But through the years, inevitably, when we would go back to visit supporting congregations, I would have people come up. Oh, I just love Tammy's Corner. It's my favorite part.
I read that. I love Tammy's
I always read it first before Joey's. And I feel like I know you. And that is so important. Really in 18 years, we lost a handful of supporters. Through 18 years. I honestly, I'm not sure I can count more than 5.
Yeah.
Very few. And most of them, they were just budgetary problems.
Yes.
And I really believe that that's one reason why is because there was a newsletter. Now, every now and then we would skip a month. If it was a holiday time and it was just too busy or something, every now and then, but very rarely. And there was always a newsletter every month. And it told what we were doing and what the family was doing. And here's us when we went back for reporting, which we're going to talk about reporting a little bit. Woohoo! It was always we went together as a family. Very rarely did Joey go on his own because they need to see the family.
They do.
There needs to be communication. There needs to be a relationship.
Yes.
And then they're invested.
Right.
This is our mission work. This is our family we're supporting.
Yes.
And that makes such a difference when it comes to if you have a request and suddenly we need X amount of money because we've had this emergency situation. They trust you. They know. And it gets provided.
Right. Exactly. That is so true. Yeah. And for women, I know it's like it was helpful to see, like you said, they want to know what the woman is up to.
Yes.
What is she doing every day? And on the outside of that, like I would look at other missionaries when I would read something about their life on the field. I'm like, oh, maybe I could do that. She's not really that different than me. She's kind of normal. Missionaries aren't as weird as I thought they were.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our little bit of our regular weirdness, but we're like in the weird normal.
Yes, exactly.
The weird normal range. But like we're just regular people like anybody else. And so when we can help people identify with that, I think it also helps to encourage them like, hey, I could be a missionary too. I could step out and do something like that. So I think that's really important.
And in some ways, their life, there's some interesting stories and there's some adventure in there. But generally speaking, life is life.
Right.
You've got children. You've got to take care of your children, depending on what we homeschooled our children. So, there were school days and then there were field trips and we did things. It just looked a little bit different because it was in a different culture, in a different land. But yeah. Help
Super
people.
Important.
We're trying to help normalize mission work.
Yes. I'm not sure that we're the best ones for that. But we're going to pretend like we are for this podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So another thing, we were thinking about is like being willing. We touched on that a little bit, but the thing is, I feel like we keep coming back to that because it's so important.
Yeah.
It's such a huge part, and you have to be willing to get yourself on the field in that preparation phase. Being willing to even consider doing mission work. But then comes when you're on the field and all the different things you're going to encounter, and it's part of that stretching. But, the stretching is the actually doing it. The being willing is getting to the point where you can do it, when you can get to the stretching point. And just being willing to change and adjust. We've talked a lot about giving up control because we like control. And I know you all dealt with this, and we did because we worked in the islands. Not every country works the same way, but island time is a real thing.
Oh, yes.
It is a real
Definitely.
thing. And that takes a lot of adjustment. Things may happen or they may not. We'll plan this, and it'll be great if it works out, but it might not work out, and you go to meet somebody for a Bible study, and you wait and you wait and you wait, and 30 minutes later they might show up, and you think they're being rude, but they don't think they're being rude because they're just, that's their culture. They're just on island time. Worship starts at 10 o'clock, give or take, ish, and really they say it starts whenever the people are there. When the large majority of all the people they were expecting to be there have shown up, that's when we start worship. And moving from American, like, very time-oriented culture into that takes a lot of adjustment. I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. Why are we not starting yet?
We live and die by a schedule.
Yes, we do. So
and they do not.
Yeah. But you know what? It all works out in the end.
Yes.
The crazy thing about it is it all works out in the end.
Yes.
So I don't know. It's a little bit of a hiccup, but you just have to be willing to learn a new way of life.
Yes.
And that's okay. We talked about being, part of being a missionary, and we read about Paul talking about becoming all things to all men. And that requires humbling ourselves, being willing, in Vanuatu, people don't generally sit in chairs. There might be a few people that'll sit, you go to someone's home, there might be a couple chairs available, but are you willing to sit on a mat? Are you willing to sit on the ground? Or do you expect somebody to get up so you can sit in the chair? Having that adjusted mindset to where you're willing to do whatever's necessary. I'm willing to get dirty.
Yeah.
Am I willing to do that? Like, that's important. That makes a difference, and it makes an impact on the people. And I remember we were at worship one Sunday, and then afterwards we were sharing food, and that, I can't remember. Oh, they had brought plates, and they'd brought forks, but there was a lot of visiting people. And in Vanuatu, the men are always served first. Then they feed the children, and then the women eat last. And so all the plates had gone out to the men. There were no plates left for the women, and they were trying to give me a plate, and I'm like, no, I'm going to eat with the women. They always eat, we want you to eat first. No, I'm going to eat with the women, and that's part of it too. Is like, am I willing to become one of them and eat with them? Well, then I'm like, no, just use the plate, give it to whoever, So you push it off to them, and then but I'm in my mind, I'm thinking, wonder what they're going to use for plates now. Well, next came the leaves. And so they sent one of the kids off to this big tree that had these giant plate-sized leaves, and they pile them up. But somebody kind of brushes them off with a towel, and then they pile a couple on top of each other, and then here comes the soup, or here comes the rice, then comes the soup, and there's your leaf. Oh, there's no more forks, so what are you going to do? You're going to eat it with your hands. And you just have to do it. Be willing to do that. Don't think about, I always say, it's just don't think about it. Don't think about the fact that, there may have been a bug crawling across that leaf. Don't think about that. Don't think about that there's probably some dust on it. Just don't think about it. But that's what they're doing. And why should I have a plate and a fork just because I'm from America? You know, why should I get that because I'm who I am? Mm-hmm. I have to be willing to do what they're doing. And if it's good enough for them, it has to be good enough for me.
Well, and oftentimes I know we would get offered chairs when no one else had a chair. Yeah. And, you know, they're doing it as a sign of respect.
Absolutely, yes.
But you also don't want them to put you in that mindset. Mm-hmm. Because if you do, then they're always putting you as someone above us.
Right.
Or as someone who's in a different category. And, you know, you're trying to develop a relationship with people. And you can't have a good relationship with somebody who is putting you on a pedestal.
Right.
Or who is, you know, thinking you're not like us.
Right. Absolutely.
You're trying to be all things to all men.
Yes.
So.
And that has the impact you want.
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
One of my best memories, probably one of the very best memories I have is we had one of our local friends, very, very dear, close friend. She had a miscarriage. And so she was at home and, you know, we knew she was having a hard time. And so my mission teammate and she and I went over to visit her. Mm-hmm. And when we got to her house, she lived in these little tiny, very, just, you know, very basic apartments. And she was out on the back area, which you share with all the people that live in the apartment, apartment complex, so to speak. And she was out back and she was washing laundry, sitting on the ground, her dish in front of her with her dirty clothes in it and washing laundry. And, you know, when we got there, she got up and greeted us and we visited for a little bit. And then we were intending to stay and stay for a little bit. And I was thinking, why is she sitting here? You know, she just had a miscarriage. She doesn't feel well. She's sad. Yeah. Here's this laundry. So I sat down and I started washing her clothes. Yeah. And she's like, no, what are you doing? You know, don't do that. And I'm like, no, you rest, you visit, you enjoy your time, and I'll wash your clothes. We'll take care of it. Yeah. And we worked on that, and it wasn't a big deal to me. Mm-hmm. It wasn't within my comfort zone. Mm-hmm. I didn't have a lot of experience hand washing at that point in my life. You know, I didn't do that on a regular basis, but I knew how to. Yeah. And I was willing to sit in the dirt and do that. And after our visit was over and we had left, she told us the next day was Sunday, and she told us that her neighbor, who was sitting outside at the same time, was like, oh, are those? And at the time she was a dear friend, but she also worked for us, helped out at our houses a couple days a week. And she's like, oh, are those your misses? They called us the misses. So Western white women from America, you know, we were the misses. She's like, oh, your misses are so good. And she's like, yes, they are good. They're just like us. And that was the hugest compliment that I could ever receive.
Absolutely.
At that time, that's what I wanted to be. Yeah. I wanted to be someone that they looked at and said, they're just like us. They're willing to do anything. Yeah. And it takes time to get to that point. It takes a lot of stretching to get to that point. But that was the best thing ever. Mm-hmm. And, you know, but if I hadn't been willing, then what? You know, we wouldn't have the relationship today that she and I still have today if I hadn't been willing to do something like that. You know, it's just so important, I think.
Yes. Yes. You know, and so often in mission work, you have to have your eyes open because there could be open doors. We pray for open doors. Right. How often do we pray for open doors? But are we actually looking for them? Yeah. Are we actually prepared to walk through them when they come along? Right. That's a whole different level. Right. And when those doors open, you know, when we first moved to Saipan, we were going into an established work. So we were going into something that was still, I guess, technically in my comfort zone, even though, I mean, because Saipan had been an American territory. Mm-hmm. It was a Commonwealth at the time, has since gone back to an American territory. But there was a lot of American influence. I wasn't terribly uncomfortable. And then after we'd been there for a few years, we realized that the church there was getting to the point there was a local minister. Mm. We had grown. We were around 60, 65 members. And we just really felt like this congregation is ready to stand on its own. Mm-hmm. But the church in Palau, on the other hand, where so while we were in Saipan, Joey would every month take a 1-week trip either to Chuk or to Palau. So that was another thing I had to adjust to, was being on the field with 2 little ones, and my husband has left the island, and he is gone for a full week every month.
Wow. Yes.
So that was an adventure, and everything that could go wrong would go wrong when he was gone.
Oh yeah,
only when he was gone.
That's how it works,
of course. But the church in Palau was struggling. They didn't have a building. It was mostly made up of Filipino contract workers who would come to Palau to do work for anywhere from 3 to 5 years. They may end up staying a lot longer. It just it varied. And the opportunity was there, and it was like, well, let's make a trip to Palau. Let's see what Palau looks like for living. And it was a good bit different. It was definitely a step down as far as comfort levels go.
Right.
Much less Americanized. There was still American influence, but it was definitely a lot less. We were living in Saipan, which was very much a cultural melting pot. Mm. There was not any significant portion of the population that was one particular race. It was very much Asian, locals, Americans, just a variety. Palau was completely different. Palau was 75% Palauan. Mm. Then they were about 30, probably 20% of the rest were Filipino contract workers. Mm-hmm. And then you had a very small fraction who were other expats. Expatriates, people who move from another country and live in a country that's not their own. Yes. That's all that means.
That's good. I had to learn that one.
Yes. And so moving to Palau was a completely different ball game. Mm-hmm. It was learning a whole nother culture. Right. It was learning a whole different way of life. It was learning all new offensive things. And you would think, between the fact that it's only, a few, 1,000 miles away, is like 2 little quick plane trips.
They're all islands, right?
They're all islands.
They're island culture.
But they are not all the same. And they all have very different beliefs. They have different issues. They have different ways of life, mentalities, the ways of dealing with things. And so that was something that I had to be prepared for. And at first, I'll be honest with you, we were there for 2 months working on building a church building. And that first month, I really, really, really thought there is just no way I can live here. I would be, every time I would go to the grocery store, people would just stare at me. No smile, no greeting. Wow. They would just stare at me. Mm-hmm. And I got so tired of being stared at all the time. Mm-hmm. And it felt so unfriendly and uncaring. And after a bit of time, I came to realize the longer I was there, then more people would start to speak to me. Mm-hmm. And more people would be a little bit, some islands are a little more reserved.
Yeah, slow to warm up.
Yes, and I had to learn that.
Yeah.
But it was definitely stepping outside of my box to decide to move to Palau.
Yes.
And then we ended up being there for 9 years.
Yeah.
That was our longest stint on an island. Mm-hmm. But And then, to be honest, there came a time when we said this is the end.
Yeah.
It's time for us to make another move.
It's definitely that learning curve, but I admire you so much because you did those different cultures, and even though Guam was like a quote unquote step up in the comfort level because it was a lot more familiar to American ways or whatever, just going from one to the next and then having to relearn a new culture and relearn a new people and relearn new ways, and that's not easy to do. I've never done that except for from America to Vanuatu. I did that once, but you did that 3 times, and that's huge. But you were willing, and I think that's such an important part. Is you were willing to try, and I totally identify with what you're saying about hitting that point where you're like, I am done. I don't think I can do this. I want to go home.
Yes.
And we hit that because we had that transition in our work where even though we were in Vanuatu the whole time, we spent 6 years in the capital city. And outside the capital city is fairly modern. It's not super nice, but it's fairly modern. But we had a normalish kind of house. We had running water, electricity. We had a refrigerator, stove, all that stuff. We had a washing machine. We didn't have a dryer or a dishwasher, anything like that. But we had pretty modern conveniences. Well, then when we moved to Tana, it was going into a village in the bush without running water and without electricity. And that first month, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I distinctly remember telling Aaron, I'm just not sure this is going to work out. And yet we had moved there. We'd sold all the stuff in the house in the city and we'd moved to the bush. And, I hit a very, very low point
I can only imagine.
Yeah, this is not, I didn't sign up for this.
Can I renege on this?
But how did we get there?
Yes.
It was, I had to get to the point where I was willing to even consider going. And we ended up there because we had converted people in this village outside of Port Vila in 2006. And slowly the church was growing in this village. It was called Atos. And most of those people were family. And they were all from the island of Tana. And pretty soon in 2007, they're telling Aaron, we really want you to go and teach our family in Tana. Will you come to Tana? So Aaron's like, okay. Well, he never took me anywhere good, wonderful advice from Robert Martin. Never take your wife anywhere that you've never been. So he went to Tana by himself on that first trip in 2007. And he comes back and he's like, man, Cindy, it was so amazing. We should really consider, we could do so much if we lived there. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
And then he went again. He went every year, 2008, 2009. Every time he would come home and he'd be like, this is so amazing. The people really want to learn. The church could grow so much there. And at that time, there weren't any Christians. He was just going and teaching, just trying to plant those seeds and get to do those Bible studies and get to the point where he could convert somebody. And every time he'd come home and say that, I'd be like, no, not for me. I don't want to live in a village. But he kept working on me, and I didn't know God was working on me. And at that point, I was not really willing. But then in 2010, Wayne Berger, who I dearly loved, came over from the States with a campaign group, and they were going to go to Tana for a week. And Aaron's like, you could go with us. And I was like, oh, Wayne's coming all this way. And if he goes to Tana and I don't go, I'm not going to get to see him at all. So, okay, I'll go to Tana just because Wayne's going. And then, so I went, we took the girls. Kayla was 6. Malia was 3. And we spent a week there. And it did not take long. I mean, just a matter of a few days because, Aaron's been working on me, telling me stories, talking to me about the people. I already know some of the family, but working on me, and God's been working on me. And I was there probably 3 days, and I'm like, I kind of want to move to Tana. Like, these people are so amazing. They are just the most wonderful people. They have nothing compared to what we have. And yet they are hungry for the word. They are excited for Bible study. They're excited about us being there. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to consider it. So we took a day on that week-long trip, and we left the girls with someone we knew in the village, and we walked down to town, and we started doing a survey trip. A one-day, same island survey trip, and just talking to people, investigating, like, okay, where would we get our food? What would we eat? How are we going to, is there a way to refrigerate anything? Would we live in town and then travel up to these villages, or would we need to live in the village? And we eventually decided it would be much more effective to live in the village. Turns out we didn't get to have any kind of refrigeration. We thought we were going to get to, and then after we moved, we found out that wasn't going to work out.
No.
That's part of getting to that low point where you're like,
wow,
I don't know if I can do this.
Yes.
But you have to keep pressing on.
Yes.
And the people keep you coming back and keep you pushing through those hard things.
Yes.
And it was great. And now, as hard as that year was, that we were there a year, and it was one of the hardest years of our married life. Like, just the things that we had to overcome and endure and work through. But we also look back at it and say it was one of the best years. Because it was, you grow through adversity.
Oh, yes.
And you realize you can do more than you think you can. And I never would have thought it possible.
And you even wrote a book about your year in Tana.
I did.
Yes.
I wrote I kind of kept a daily journal of our time there. Okay, let's be honest. It wasn't daily. It was like, weekly. But highlighting some of the things that we dealt with and just talking about what life was like there. And I named it March On because that's what you have to do. And I took it, I think it was Judges, now that I'm not, hadn't looked this up. I think it was 5:21, the end part of that verse. It says, "Oh, my soul, march on with strength." And I'm like, I painted that on my kitchen window because we lived in a little one-room cement house that other people had written on and painted on. I'm like, well, I can paint on these walls too then. And I wrote that verse over my kitchen window because it meant a lot to me. I had to keep marching on. And I looked at that so many times. But, it got me through. Just march on through things.
Yeah. So if you want to know more about Cindy's life in the bush, I highly recommend it. After reading it, I felt like not a missionary. I was like, man, I need to go live, I guess, in Chuk. I could live in Chuk on the mountain. That would be equivalent.
Yeah.
Only, I don't think I'm going to do that.
No. Okay. It's not for everybody. But, you face things that I didn't face. I face things that you didn't face. I mean, every missionary's story is different.
Yes.
And people even who live in modern countries face things that
absolutely
we didn't even have to deal with because we were in that laid back island lifestyle. So it's different. There's just
the grass is never greener on the other side.
So true. Yes, absolutely. Okay, we should keep rolling on.
We're going long again. How is this possible?
Okay, well, we'll wrap it up with one last thought.
Yes.
Which I said we were going to come back to, so we have to come back to it, but it's the idea of spiritual growth.
Absolutely.
Like, that number one priority is making sure when you're on the field. I had to, of course, this is, we went, and you all went back when the internet was not really a thing. I mean, it was a thing, but it was not accessible.
Yes.
And you couldn't just get on and stream something. So I had to take over study books, Bible study books, so I could keep up with my own growth. Making the effort. I had to think, when I went over, Kayla was 9 months old. And in that, first couple of years, we're doing like little kid Bible story books with her. But when we went back on furlough, she's a little bit older. She needs something with a little bit more, with some questions and some, more thoughts and involved in like application. And, as your kids grow in age, you have to start thinking forward.
Yes.
And sometimes you can only get those things back in the States. So I had to plan ahead. Okay, we won't be back till this year. Okay, what am I going to need for the next? Usually for us, it was about 1.5 to 2 years. before we came back.
Yeah.
So what am I going to need in the next couple of years for myself and my own spiritual growth, but also for my kids?
Yes.
So lots of planning.
There is, most definitely. And like you said, it was not easy. You know, we, Joey and I would try to do a lot of World Video Bible School, but again, that was before we could just stream it online.
Right.
So, you know, we were ordering these things, and I don't know how the mail was with y'all, but for us, we could get stuff, but, you know, it was order it, and if they would mail it to Palau,
right,
which was always a big if, you're looking at a month.
Yes, because it came by ship.
Oh, yeah.
Actual, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Shipping did not mean stick it on a plane.
No.
It usually meant stick it on a boat.
Yes. Yes, and so you waited for things, and then, you know, you had to just have stuff. And we were very fortunate that we had people in the States, you know, when a congregation that supported us was closing out a curriculum, you know, they would say, hey, do you need some material?
That's nice. Yes.
So we had lots of things shipped to us that way, which was very beneficial, came in very handy. But yeah, it takes a lot of preparation, and it takes a lot of forethought. And you've got to feed yourself, because you're generally, in most mission areas, you're dealing with people who are still needing milk.
Yeah.
But yet you need meat.
Right.
You need to go beyond the milk, and you need to feed yourself meat. And if you're constantly just listening to the sermons that are all milk for the rest of the congregation, you're not going to grow the way you need to grow.
Well, and from like the emotional side of it, like you're depleting yourself, because you're counseling, you're talking, you're studying, you're giving, because that's what you're supposed to do. But yet all that outpouring, there's not a lot coming in to what you need that's tailored to what you actually need. Now, I mean, the outpouring of love that you receive from the local people, that's a whole different thing. Yeah. But as far as like spiritual growth coming in, there's
You've got to keep refilling the cup.
You have to keep refilling the cup. Aaron was amazing, and he was so good to like let me, when Pacific Islands Bible College would come in, they would send over instructors who would teach a couple courses they'd come about once a year. And whenever those courses were going on for the church, he would stay home with the girls and watch the girls so that I could go and attend those Bible classes. You know, and just that little bit was such a huge encouragement to me. You know, I looked forward to it every year. Oh, yes. And I know he was giving up that for himself so I could do it. But I really appreciated it. Like, it did a lot for me. And I was thankful he did that.
Well, and it was always such a boost to have American Christians coming over. Yes. That you could talk to on a more level playing field, you know, who understood you and who were more spiritually mature. Yeah. So you could have more mature conversations with someone. That was always such a uplifting time for us.
Absolutely.
Even though it was an exhausting time, because when we had PIBC in Saipan, this went on for 3 weeks. Monday through Friday, 2 hours every night. Yeah. And in order for the congregation to be able to come and to be able to listen, and the ladies and everyone, we had children's classes. So that kind of fell into my lap. Yes. And so myself, and I would usually either the local preacher's wife or the other American lady who was at the church there, the three of us usually tried to do that so that the local ladies could grow. Yes. They could be in those classes and they could be growing spiritually. But that was a job, you know, 3 weeks of 5 nights a week,
but that's part of the work. But like that's part of doing mission work is seeing, okay, what needs are out there, how am I going to fill those, you know? And spiritual growth doesn't just like, you have to think about your own spiritual growth, but you're also there to help other people grow spiritually. So for you to do that and sacrifice your time, and you know, that's a lot. Entertaining a lot of children for, you know, every night for 3 weeks, you know, when they're not your own, like that's a work. And yet if you didn't do that, the other women who probably would be the ones watching the kids. If you didn't make that possible for them, where would they be?
Yes.
So like, that's huge that you did that, and just anything that you can see on the mission field, I feel like that will help the local women to grow is beneficial.
Yes.
We did women's Bible studies in various times in villages, travel out, you do a day study or whatever, aside from personal Bible studies, but just like a women's group study. Ladies' days, which, believe me, ladies' days in the islands take on a whole different look than they do in the States. I was very surprised when we were having a ladies' day, and I was like, okay, what do y'all want? They're like, we want to have some like activities. I'm like, okay, great. We sometimes do that at ladies' days in the States. What do y'all want to do? We want to have a foot race down the beach. Like, okay, great. So what did we do? We had a foot race down the beach, and it was like teamwork. Ages, 15 up to 60 are these women. I'm like, never in America ever would we ever have a ladies' day where
that's great.
Let's go for a run. And I did not do well. That running on sand is not.
No,
it's not all it's cracked up to be. Those like commercials, they make it look so lovely and just this glorious thing. I'm like, it is not like that at all. No. It's like hard work. But anyway, like doing those things, it really does help women grow. Like, we also did like Pekanini Bible Club, which was a VBS, one day VBS. And it was, the funny thing is, it was a program for the children to teach the children, but it ended up helping the women grow almost as much as the kids, because we would get together and we'd plan out what we're going to do. And it would stretch some of the women that were like more timid. Like, I don't know if I want to do that. You could do that. Come on. They'd pair up with somebody who was a little bit more courageous, to lead a game or to lead the story or to do the songs or, whatever it was. They grew because of that, and the time that we all spent planning it and laughing over things and laughing at each other, and that helped the work as well. So that turned out to be, I didn't know it going into it. I thought, we're just doing this for the kids. Turns out we were doing it for the women too. So it was good,
Yeah. Well, it's an area of growth. I mean, they need to know how to teach. They need to know how to carry these things on after we leave.
Right.
I know it was the same situation, particularly in Saipan, was trying to get other ladies to teach. Yeah. And they were generally relying on those of us otherwise who, to do that. And we finally developed, Joey's very creative, and so he was by far the man to do for the job. He created basically a walk-through Bible class. And he was I don't even remember how far he got, but he was just going through the Bible. And so basically all he had to do was hand them this thing. You're going to read this story, you're going to ask these questions, and here's a coloring sheet activity page to give. It was like simple, here we go. And we got so many ladies who were willing to do that, and it gave them the confidence to be able to keep doing. Yes. And to see that they could.
Right. Yeah, you have to get on their level and find things that will work within that culture.
Yes.
And that was part of that learning curve.
Yes.
Because when I first went over, we tried to implement all kinds of Bible class related things for kids. That just, we'll do flannels. Flannels will hold up in the heat. Yeah. And flannels are going to get, they get left in a plastic box that the lid gets left off of, and then you get cockroaches in it, and you get dust and dirt, and we weren't supposed to talk about those,
mold, and,
but all kinds of stuff. And it's like, okay, this is not that's familiar to our culture. It's not familiar to theirs.
Yes.
So you have to adjust and figure out, okay, what does work.
Yes.
So that's just part of
mission work.
Yes.
Be adaptable.
Yes, absolutely.
Be fluid. Yes.
Yeah, it's fun.
It is great.
Try it, you'll like it.
Absolutely.
Well, we probably better wrap up because
I think we probably should.
And, but it's been great.
Yes.
I always love talking about mission work with you.
Absolutely.